Aloha friends, it's Robert Stehlik with Blue Planet Surf. Today's video is all about the BlueWater Classic, which happened in July of 2022, a couple weeks ago. It was the biggest foil race we had so far here on Oahu. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the event, the participants, the equipment we used, the tactics and strategies and techniques we used to race, the conditions. I got lots of footage from various sources that I collected, the results and everything else. So hope you enjoy this video. Let's get into it. So the BlueWater Classic was organized by the same group that does the Molokai to Oahu Race, which hasn't happened for the last 3 years. So it's great to be able to race with our buddies. There's Derek, Eddie, and Kevin. And then on the race day, we had a pretty good crew of wingers. And so we just found out like a week or so before that the foil course was not just for prone and stand-up foilers, but also they're going to have a wing division. So the week before we started training for that run, getting our equipment dialed in and so on. So it was pretty fun to test out the different setups. And I would say in terms of the gear, the most important thing was having a fast foil that had enough low end to kind of make it to the finish. The finish was hard because it's like very fluky wind and going upwind towards the windsock at the end. This is the Lift 120, which Josh was using. So finding the right combination between a fast, speedy foil for the beginning part of the race, and then but still having enough lift to make it to the finish. It's probably similar to what you're going to want for the Molokai channel crossing, because it's kind of similar. You got a good fast downwind run for most of the race, but then at the end you have to go upwind to the finish line. So for both of those races, it's going to be hard to find the perfect foil that has both high speed and also good amount of lift at lower speed. So this is Glenelle's setup. She was on a unifoil and her small board. This is Eddie. He has a PPC soar board, which I think was a great choice, and a PPC 4.8 wing. So Eddie did well. And a lot of the GoFoil riders were using the RS series foils, so that seemed to work well. And then I think Derek was using a really small GoFoil in the training. This was my setup. I was using the ART 899 axis foil, which has projected area of about 830 square centimeters, which is kind of a high aspect foil. I was using the short fuselage, which is a little bit longer than I usually use, and the 460 tail, which is kind of a high aspect tail. That setup worked really well, and the 105 centimeter mast, so a long mast. And I used the 5.3 Wingmaster 96 volume, and it has kind of that really boofy nose and relatively narrow at 24 inches. So that board I think worked really well to get going in the beginning. And then also if when I touch down slightly, it has a really neutral feel and kind of just bounces off the water very predictably. So I actually made it the whole run without falling in. So that I think that was pretty key to being able to win the race. So this was one of my training runs where I noticed I fell in outside Diamond Head and then felt a lot faster afterwards. And I was trying to figure out, if that was just a mental thing. I was kind of struggling in the whole first part of the race. And then at the end, I felt I was going super fast and finally catching up to the other guys. But thinking about it later, you can see where I fell and then higher speed afterwards. I think what happened is maybe like a leaf or a little piece of algae or something got stuck on my foil or on my mast and was just slowing me down just a little bit. And but it was noticeable. So that just like a small little thing like that can affect the speed, and that kind of shows how important the foil is, especially in having low drag and high speed foil. But that also still here you can see at the end the wind straight offshore at the windsock, and the wind is very light because it's kind of covered by a diamond head. And the hotels and stuff kind of block the wind at the end. So coming in here through that narrow pass is tricky. This is at the beginning heading toward Portlock Point where the start was. At that point out there, this is Eli heading out on his 7-meter alien wing. That's the same wing I used. A big wing. During training, we realized that having the big wing definitely helps because you're going downwind. So the faster you're going downwind, the less pressure you have in the wing. So being overpowered was definitely a good thing. Overpowered when you're going sideways to the wind. And I think that's Eli on the outside there. And Jeff Chang provided this footage. So this is Jeff Chang's GoPro footage that he had on his head mount camera. So you got some point of view at the start. Next to him is Nani Dalene, and you see all the stand-up foilers at the start outside Portlock Point. The start was a little bit chaotic. They told us they would start us at 11 o'clock sharp, but then they just blew the horn at like 5 minutes to 11. We were surprised by it. And I was kind of further upwind, still just sitting on my board, taking a rest and waiting to drift towards the finish line. And then they blew the horn like 5 minutes early. So by the time I got going, it was kind of similar to what happened to Jeff here. But there's Nani. They almost ran into each other. But Nani did really well in the race. I was super impressed by her. She finished second. She and second overall, and first by far in the women's division. So Nani did really well, and she was able to wing all the way to the Windsock. So I was very impressed by Nani's performance. And but this kind of what it looked like for me too in the beginning. There was some guys that were already hundreds of yards ahead of me, and but I just kind of focused on staying a little bit outside. I took kind of an outside line. And that, I think that helped because there was a little bit more wind outside, I think. But when you turned left, going kind of away from the coast, that was a lot harder to maintain your speed and catch bumps because just the angle of the bumps made it a lot easier to go downwind and catch bumps on the way in going to the right. And then of course it's hard to turn straight downwind because if you're going 20 miles an hour and then you're turning straight downwind, then you're going as faster than the wind on a bump. So then your wing starts to get backwinded and so on. So it was, it's not just about going fast, but also going fast in the right direction. Here you can see the point at Diamond Head, that land sticking out there. That's kind of what you're aiming for, a little bit outside of the Diamond Head point. And then Jeff, you can see he's kind of pumping his wing. So the wind was pretty good, but not super strong. So it was having that 7-meter wing was definitely good for me. And Eli on the 7-meter as well. He finished second overall in the men's division. So, we got like first and second on the 7-meter alien wing. So I think definitely having that wing was a good choice to have a big wing, and I think maybe even bigger wing might be good. We're actually working on a prototype 8-meter wing now for really light wind and also downwind racing, because I think having a big wing is definitely going to help with going fast downwind. But also, you also want it to be relatively compact. I mean, obviously you don't want a wing that has a huge wingspan or that can get backwinded easily and stuff like that. So it's a combination. And there was Daniel and this is me racing now with that 7-meter alien wing. And here you can see kind of going out. It was like even on that 7-meter, I felt kind of underpowered. I had to like pump the wing and to keep some pressure in there. And it's hard to really turn downwind because you just lost pressure. And this is Eli. He's holding the wing on the leash in the front to kind of get it up a little bit higher over him. I use that technique a little bit too. It's a good strategy. And the stand-up foilers were super impressive as well. I thought we would be going way faster than them, but in the finish, like Jack Ho finished first in the stand-up foil division, and he was only less than 2 minutes behind me and behind the fastest wing foiler. So very impressive. This is Glenelle. She was using her tiny board that she uses for, surf wing foiling and pretty much, I think, her standard wave setup that she was using. So, but she's super talented. And did well in the race as well. So there's 2 female wing foilers, Nani and Glenelle, and they both finished really well. And here's a little bit of footage from the live streaming boat that they had during the race. So they had a live stream of the race, and they said they had a hard time keeping up with the foilers because they're going so fast. So they were doing more coverage of the prone foilers, of the prone paddlers and the OC1s and so on. This is Andrea Moeller. She came from Maui to do this race on the stand-up board. She was the fastest in the women's downwind foiling. And she said it was a little bit harder than Maui. I guess she's used to having better bumps on Maui, but obviously she did very well. This whole event was sponsored by Florence Marine, which is John Florence's brand. So thank you for sponsoring it and putting together that live feed and everything else. So here's some more footage from Jeff Chang's camera, and it's Glenelle Jordan going out and Jeff's going kind of towards the land. So whenever you turn to the left and heading more out to sea, it felt like you weren't making as much progress. So going towards the land towards the right, it seemed like you were definitely going much faster and able to catch bumps and so on. So it was kind of tricky though. If you ended up taking too many bumps to the right, you would end up too far inside. And I think definitely the wind line or the wind was a little bit stronger on the outside. So my strategy was to kind of stay a little bit further out and not go too far in where the wind was basically a little bit lighter. So that was kind of my race strategy, and it seemed to work out pretty well. Like I could see people on the inside, further inside, but I was making good progress kind of further on the outside. And then by the time they had to come further out, I was already kind of ahead of most people. But of course, there's a lot of good fast foilers. Nani and Daniel both did very well and were fast in the downwind legs, and they were using a Cabrina foil, which looked similar to the Lift 120 to me, like kind of a high aspect foil, and that seemed to be a really good choice, fast foil for this race as well. So they said, Daniel said that's the fastest foil he's tried so far. Derek Hamasaki was also, during our training runs, using a really fast foil that was, I think, his toe-in foil. I'm not even sure what size it was, but it just looked like a tiny high aspect foil. And he was going super fast on that. I was really looking forward to racing with Derek during the race because, we had our training runs and then where we were kind of just head-to-head a lot of the time. But then Derek decided to be water patrol. He was on a jet ski with Kevin, providing water safety. So thanks for that, Derek. But I was really looking forward to racing him. But oh well. He basically just did that for the common good, which is very cool of you, Derek, to do that. Appreciate that. But yeah, so getting close to Diamond Head now. You can see this was actually a really fast part of the race where there's like nice bumps running along the coast. The wind was still strong, but then the closer you got to Waikiki, the more iffy the wind got. There's still good bumps to run, but the wind got kind of iffy, so you just wanted to make sure you had enough speed to make it through the lulls where there was basically no wind in some spots. And then, if you didn't want to end up too close to the coast because that's where the wind was, the more fluky wind was closer to the shore. Behind Diamond Head, there's just like a little wind hole there. So that part of the race was definitely tricky. And then, the prone paddlers, here Jeff's passing one of the prone paddlers, and the OC1s and everyone else, we were passing them, but they started earlier at around the corner at Makapu, so they had a much longer course. Their course was about 22 miles. Our course was only, I think, about 8 miles or so. So it was cool to have that opportunity to race it with wind power in a paddle race. Obviously it's a little bit of an unfair advantage to be able to use the wind power and the foil, which is so efficient. Obviously on the stand-up paddle race board, I've never had times anywhere close to that. From the blinker buoy to the windsock, I think my fastest time was around 56 minutes. On the wing foil board, I did it in around 28 minutes. So that's definitely way faster, like about twice as fast, going twice as fast as on a stand-up paddle board. But it makes it exciting, I think, but also not as much of a workout. So if you do one downwinder and it only takes half an hour, you don't get your heart rate up nearly as much as when you're doing a downwind run on a stand-up paddle board. So it's a little bit different in terms of the workout you get. It's almost like you have to do 2 runs to get the same workout as 1 run on a stand-up paddle board. But yeah, here he's just getting close to Waikiki now. You can kind of see the natatorium in the distance there. And there's someone else on the inside on a stand-up foil board. But this is where the wind starts to get real fluky. So my strategy was to try to stay on a wave to kind of keep up the speed through the lulls, and then connect to another wave and just try to look for the patches of wind that you can still find. But then in some places the wind just totally stops or gets swirly and kind of offshore, or comes from the opposite direction and just kind of hits you in the face all of a sudden, and you get backwinded. So this part is definitely tricky. Oh, here you can see the natatorium kind of straight ahead of him. He's getting close to the reef patch there. And this is, I guess, where the wind just shut off for Jeff, and he had to prone paddle the rest, and still probably another 5 minutes or so to paddle from there. So it's really not the ideal course for wing foiling, but that's kind of how it is, and that kind of makes the whole thing more interesting because you don't know what you're gonna get. And this was the finish line. You can see the windsock blowing straight offshore at the finish. Nani was able to somehow wing all the way to the finish line, which I thought was super impressive. And then Eli finished second in the men's. So this was my run. Pretty consistent speed. I think the average speed was like 18.4 miles per hour. So that was pretty good. And I timed myself I hit the start when I was already up and foiling off Portlock Point. So I probably started it a little bit after the horn. And then I tried to stay a little bit further outside. And then at the very end, I had to paddle the last 50 yards or so towards the windsock. So that was the slow part, like when I fell in, like right around there. I was already kind of just outside, just off the reef by the windsock. So paddled the rest of the way. And according to my GPS, took me about 28 minutes. The official results, I think, were about 2 minutes fast. My time on the official results was 26:30. And so I don't know what happened there, but I think everybody's times were about 2 minutes faster. But definitely those are possible times. I think it's possible to do it in 25 minutes or less. Our course was just from Portlock to Diamond Head. The rest of the field did the longer course from Molokai Pier. This was the start of the race, which is around the corner. So they did the 22-mile course, a much longer course. And going out towards Molokai Pier is definitely challenging. It's rough water, or coming out from Molokai Pier towards the lighthouse there at Makapu Point. And then once you get around the corner, then you have like nicer downwind conditions. And, the prone paddlers were killing it. Here's a picture of me. This was kind of one of my strategies when I was trying to go straight downwind. I would kind of hold the sail flat over my head to keep it from getting backwinded. Eli's strategy was to kind of get the wing a little bit higher by holding the leash with his front hand, so get a little bit more power in the wing. It's a good strategy too. And then the stand-up foilers were super impressive. They were almost as fast as we were with the wings, or in many cases faster. So really cool. This is Mick DeBetta. My friend Mick, wanted to give him a shout out. He came from Australia. He was the first winner of the Molokai to Oahu race when the race first started, and in this race he also won the unlimited prone division. So super impressive at his age to still be at the top of his game. So well done, Mick. And then a lot of here's the race crew, Mike Takahashi, those guys. Oh yeah, and Mike was paddling also. So there's so much tradition in the Molokai to Oahu race, the paddleboard world championship. So these were the results of the OC1 paddleboard and stand-up paddle division. And yeah, Mick DeBetta in first place, men's unlimited overall. Very impressive at his age. So well done, Mick. And thanks to the organizers. This was the official finish line at Sand Island, and this is Fuzzy, who winged all the way to the finish. He finished first in Waikiki and then kind of just decided to continue all the way to the end at Sand Island. So for us wing foilers, it would have definitely been possible to do the whole race from Makapu all the way to Sand Island. And hopefully next year they'll have the Molokai to Oahu race and they'll let us wing foil in it. That's what we're hoping for. Thanks for watching. All right, I hope you liked this little recap on the BlueWater Classic race. Please, if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the Blue Planet Surf YouTube channel, and we'll see you on the water. Aloha.